Welcome to Troubleshooting Innovation, a commercial baking podcast, sponsored by Parado's Sunset Glaze, a plant-based egg wash alternative for today's industrial baker. I'm your host, Joanie Spencer, Editor-in-Chief of Commercial Baking. In this season, I'm speaking with Richard Charpentier, Master Baker, Bakery Expert, and President at Baking Innovation, and we are discussing the technical aspects of creating high-quality, premium baked goods on a commercial scale. This episode revolves around how the look and feel of a premium product can garner a higher price point. Hi, Richard. Thanks for joining me for this last week in our season.
Hey, Johnny. Good to hear from you. And yeah, I'm glad to be part of it, and sad to know it's already the last segment of it.
All right. It goes by fast, doesn't it?
We had so much fun.
For sure. Okay, so we are going to wind this down by looking at the end of the process, the finished baked good, and what happens when it's on the shelf. So in terms of aesthetics, what is it that makes a difference between a standard and a premium baked good?
Oh, very, very good question. When it comes to aesthetics, I think there are several factors that differentiate, standard baked goods from the premium ones. On the cake, it's the intricate designs, decoration on the cake, or sometimes you even see on the bread. You look online through, like the TikTok and the Instagram, and you'll see all the people doing very intricate, unique shapes and patterns in breads and pastry. Look at the example of the cronuts, right? It's basically a croissant that looks different. Everybody was like, wow, that looks premium. But when I started in the industry, I remember Hostess was always considered at the time and for years sort of the leader and sort of the premium boxed retail cake. And one thing that set them different was the squiggle. The squiggle for years, that was the little thing that made a difference from a regular cupcake to a premium cupcake. So things like that will, from the aesthetic, will make a big difference. And the appearance of a premium croissant, we talked about croissant. So maybe it's the distinct, flakiness of the golden color due to the high quality butter and flour. And people right away say, ooh, this one looks really premium, just visually, and doesn't have to have a design. If it's a product that is not retail, the packaging could be premium. Again, we mentioned Entenmann, and Entenmann back in the days, in order to make the product premium, their marketing approach was, we're going to make a clear window so everybody, when they buy, it's like a retail, they can see what they're buying. Therefore, visual appeal is sell appeal versus just, something that is more of a neutral, that's a box with a picture. Because people would perceive quality through the visual, and it's important to do that. And I think aesthetic, I've read something that 70 to 80% of the decisions made by consumers, again, it's using the senses, 70 to 80% of buying decisions are made visually. And it's true, you walk somewhere and you look at something and, ooh, that looks really nice, I want to buy it. We use our senses to connect with the food. And that's why I think aesthetic, it's good to put in the box, but the product has to look like the product on a picture, which is the challenge. Because if you open the box and you look at the product and you're like, oh, it looks nothing like it, then most likely you won't be disappointed and not buy it again. So, the visual, the aesthetic, it has to be looking nice. You mentioned the burger buns last week, brioche bun. When you have a nice, beautiful shine, it makes you want to eat it.
For sure. I mean, I have this image in my mind of a perfect brioche hamburger bun, and the aesthetic of it, the look of it, is what sticks in my head and sort of gets my thoughts in motion for wanting a burger with a brioche bun. We talked about taste and texture last week and how taste reigns supreme, truly. Like, taste is what will ensure the repeat purchase. But you're right, appearance is what gets the purchase in the first place. So when you think about the R&D process, where should appearance come onto the radar for a product developer? Does it need to be considered early on? Like, how are we going to develop a product that's very beautiful looking as well as great tasting? Where does it fall in the process?
It's a great question, and appearance, as we're talking about, is really the important overall appeal of a bakery product. And the first thing, the customers, will catch their attention, be like, "Oh, this looks good." But from an R&D standpoint, now R&D is there to design, to create. So the ingredients will play a factor into the finished product. If you're using, like we mentioned, croissants, but it's going to also be that the appearance is going to be coming ultimately from the way it's being done in the plant. So the automation. So it's not just, the R&D can say, hey, this is a great product, but how is this being ran every day? How much attention to details is being put into the bakery to ensure that visual appeal is there? Again, the example of a squiggle mark, trademark on the cupcake. How do we ensure that it's being done every day? And are the people trained? Are the product baked perfectly? Because in all the bakeries, they'll have a chart that says overbaked, underbaked, perfect. Entering the premium, R&D can only control so much, but early in the process, R&D can dictate, and R&D will have to set up the what we used to do, the inline specifications, and put very strong standard deviation for the process to ensure that this is what we want to target, and don't deviate from it. And that's where R&D's role will be at the beginning, to check on the taste, when they're running their test, the line test, to ensure that, can we replicate, can you duplicate, can we triplicate the same results? And when they feel confident, and that's what we did with my years with ConAgra, we would go in the plant, and sometimes it would be up to 3 months to ensure that the product was repeatable. Why was the product accepted to be put on the market? Is because it's a unique product, and that's where R&D will have to make sure to deliver consistent and visually appealing products day in and day out, and work very closely with the ops and manufacturing to ensure that it's a doable thing. And if it's not, then they should raise the red flag and be, hey guys, we're having a problem. Because there's nothing worse to push for premium, and then if you open the package and it's a different experience, you're going to be disappointed as a consumer.
Yeah. And that really goes back to how we closed out last week's conversation, in that there has to be a relationship between the bakery science and the automation to bring it together.
Yes, yes, especially as we mentioned, especially with dealing, with yeast or chemically leavened. The bakery is full of changes, different ingredients, different weather. So it's a lot of reactions, chemical reaction and biological reaction happening constantly. And monitoring, 2 degrees difference makes a difference in your dough with the end results. And bakers know that. So how do we all work together to ensure to have more precision, and to ensure that the product coming out is going to be resembling the product we made yesterday?
Right, right.
That's a challenge.
Yeah, totally. Okay, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and go outside of the operation and go back to that channel discussion that we had a few weeks ago. I want to talk specifically about the retail and supermarket shelves. What do bakers need to be mindful of in terms of how their premium products can be merchandised or will be merchandised? So, like, how does a high volume producer of center store products need to think about their market strategy versus a baker who might be producing items that are sold in the perimeter of the store?
To start, with the merchandising, the premium products in the retail market shelves, I think the first thing is your packaging. Packaging of the product should be visually appealing and attractive to the customer. And once you get to, and again, I'm not a marketer, but the way I look at it is, I go back to almost like back in the 1992, 93, when I think it was Hostess launched a Baker's Inn. They tried to do sort of that premium retail baker bread done into a different packaging on a brand bag. And I thought it was so cool. But the bread, overall was too similar to what they were selling, so they could not sell the premium. But packaging is key. So maybe think of all the ways of packaging the bread, and maybe bread doesn't have to be sliced. Maybe, I've seen like people who sell a baguette. The baguette is not sliced at the bakery deli category. Then another thing to keep in mind and mindful, the shelf life of your product. It's not just the only thing, but it's important. There's no waste, because rethink of premium in terms of shelf life, where it's being maybe placed on in the grocery store. And sometimes, consumers tend to think that the bakery deli aisle is fresher and therefore more premium. And then lastly, on that first question, I think marketing has to find a way to be creative and showcase that, yeah, it's still a bread, but this bread is different. How? And maybe use influencer or social media and create more awareness that, hey, that product is premium, and it's, even though it's the same brand, but it's different. And this is why, almost like the automobile industry will do when they launch their new car. And you're like, wow, this is cool. And there's new seats, new these, new. It's what are the added value and what's the new experience that the bakery is giving the consumers. And then how does a high volume producer of center store product need to think about their market strategy versus a baker producing for the perimeter? I think that, I come from grocery stores as well. And then if you look at the typical layout of a grocery store, the center stores is most likely all the shelf stable items and middle aisles of a grocery store. And usually they market it to appeal to, wider range of consumers. But usually those producers, manufacturers of those products in the center store, they use heavier advertising, they use better promotion, they often use lots of coupon and discounts you'll find in your paper, and to drive the sales and increase the market share. But on the other hand, the bakery products for around the perimeter, it's we're dealing with perishable items. And usually those products are going to be sold in smaller quantities and have higher quality ingredients. And how do you market, the difference? It's knowing the market and knowing what will attract the customers coming in and what are they willing to pay for a premium price. That's going to be the first, in my opinion, first thing to understand, and see from the supply chain of distribution to the grocery store, can they use the same distribution? Baking, it can be done differently. And at one point, even for the more of the perimeter or the bakery deli, I always said, hey, let's have some of your dough, freeze it, and maybe have the in-store bakery bake it for you, like Walmart used to do. But instead of being just their brand, it could be why not the Dave Skiller bread baked fresh every day? Because freshness is going to be perceived as premium. So, and again, I'm thinking outside of the box. I'm not saying that's what they should do, but giving some thoughts around it of how it could be done, because competing with the center store with the heavy marketing dollars that is spent to ensure people will come back, it's difficult to compete, especially in the bakery category.
Yeah, for sure, because you're looking at brand recognition versus marketing solely on the look of the product and what it's packaged in.
Achieving premium shine and color just got easier. Parado's Sunset Glaze makes it easy to give baked goods the premium look and long-lasting golden shine consumers crave without the need for eggs. As any industrial baker knows, glazing creates an eye-catching shine that consumers associate with freshness and quality. But working with a typical egg wash adds allergens and operational issues during production. Parados is here to help with Sunset Glaze. This egg-free, plant-based alternative is a consistent way to elevate the look of buns, rolls, croissants, and more. Plus, its dry touch application ensures flawless packaging and a long-lasting golden shine. Just spray, bake, and you're golden. Sunset Glaze. No eggs, no problem. Visit parados.us. That's PURATOS.us to learn more solutions for today's industrial baker.
I do want to talk a little bit about packaging because I will say I am a sucker for good packaging. Like, in any capacity as a consumer, I will buy something if it's packaged beautifully. What do you think are the top packaging considerations in terms of things like the materials that it's packaged in? You had sort of mentioned this, like, can you see the product and how does the product look inside the packaging? But then also label claims that tout the ingredients or the quality or even nutritional claims. How should bakers be taking those types of things into consideration?
I see that in my opinion, to attract people and to give advice to the bakers in terms of packaging and consideration. We mentioned on the first week, La Durée with the French macaroons. Once you walk into a store or a retail shop, you see all the products displayed there and they're full of colors. It makes you want to buy them. So I think you have visibility of your product. How do you work it out? I want to see what I'm buying. If you have just a box with a beautiful picture, I think it's great, but it doesn't make me want to eat the box. I want to eat the product. We're using our senses. We're using, as we mentioned in prior weeks, the aesthetics, the appeal, visual appeal is super important. The taste, the texture, etc. So we're connecting with the product in terms of our senses. So visual appeal make the product stand out on the shelf, and then you have other aspects which I've seen in grocery store where people will use matte packaging, or resealable packaging or oxygen scavengers. But we can revamp the packaging, but based on what you do. And right now, we cannot forget sustainability. I think bakers should be thinking of designing packaging with sustainability in mind. I don't know, eco-friendly materials or minimizing packaging, because there's a cost to packaging, but there's a cost to premium.
Yeah.
So it's finding the right balance of, all right, how could I create the best packaging and still be premium, but still sustainable? And right now we do the easy part. We're talking about it. It's work to find the balance and to get the product, the packaging, and the supply chain and the distribution to deliver the packaging. But I think packaging is, again, visibility to me would be the number one appeal. I want to see my product. I want to see what I'm buying.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. So then on the flip side, some commercial bakers are producing for food service. So what are the visual aspects that scream high quality to a restaurateur when they are selling their products? Bringing it back to the hamburger on a brioche bun.
Yeah, no, that's where I was about to say that. It's true. Restaurant owners and the food service, it's a different priority when it comes to high quality and visual appeal of baked goods. One, they want to set themselves apart. And it's true. How many times have we sat into a small restaurant, get your burger, and the bun is basically the same bun that you can buy at the grocery store, and you're like, yeah, this is good, but it takes away the experience. And again, it doesn't take it unique. It's almost like you love to drink wine, and they have the same wine that they serve. You buy at home, the simple wine, and you're like, well, it takes away the experience. So I think the restaurant owners, they want something to set them apart. So, the example of a brioche, and if the brioche is nice and shiny, and then it goes through the aesthetic, the taste, the texture, and all the things we've been talking about, then the customer is going to say, hey, I'm coming back here because that's a consistent product. I love it. It's different because it's part of the experience. And for them, offering premium products that appeals to the customer is how they build their customer satisfaction, loyalty, and people coming back. Because as a small restaurant, unlike a manufacturer and a high line, you push all the product, you push them out, and you're like, done. Those guys are dealing with the customer every day. If they're not happy, they're going to stand up and say, I want to speak to the manager. So for them, premium is very important. Not only the burger buns are important, but it could be, I don't know, the rustic sourdough loaf. And because the crust is caramelized and the chew is great, or go to a place that serves premium bagel sandwiches, and the bagels, maybe they're getting them par baked and they're finishing them there. So in the appeal, you have all the seats, and then you can see it having an appeal that almost looks like it was made by an artisan baker. And again, customers thinking I'm getting a quality product, and therefore it justifies the higher price point for my burger. The meat is great, the burger is amazing. I'll spend $18 for a burger because now it's worth it to me. So I think it's a great point, because I think sometimes there's a disconnect. I could set an example that would be interesting: to get a premium meat burger and you put one on a everyday type of burger bun you buy at a grocery store, and you put a brioche bun, and take 50 people and say, which one would you want? I can almost assure you that most people will go where you have the brioche, or the nicer looking bread.
Oh, absolutely. And I will tell you, these high quality brioche buns or high quality sourdough breads for a great sandwich, they can be made at scale. And these food service customers are really seeking that, because you're right, they can't do that in the back of the house. And I was actually at a restaurant and ordered a sandwich, and I had that experience that you described. I was like, this is something that I could have made in my own refrigerator. Like, just opening up my refrigerator to see what I've got laying around, I could have done this in 5 minutes. And that is a really impactful experience, and not in the direction that a food service operator would want it to go. So I think that it is important for bakers to really understand that there is business opportunity to be had in creating high quality premium baked goods for food service customers.
Yep. No, and good point. It's true. It's we want to make sure that, again, it's all about the experience. It's not like just you have the product you buy every day, which you're going to buy your bread, or you're going to buy certain things, your milk, your eggs. It's the everyday item. But if you want premium, it's rethinking what is premium.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, visually, what your opinion is on quality crossover among different channels. And I'll just give you a narrative example. So during the pandemic, my family and I had this tradition. When food service was shut down and you could only get carry out, we started a tradition that on Friday nights, we would order carry out. And we're a family of 3. And so we would rotate. One person got to choose each Friday. And we still kind of do it today, but we don't necessarily do carry out. We'll go out to eat. But one Friday, my son said, it's my pick, and I want to make at home really great hamburgers and have all the fixins and make really like fancy hamburgers and do it together in the kitchen, all 3 of us making these. So we went to the grocery store and picked out like the best we could find. And so that's sort of my narrative example of what I'm asking, like the visual crossover among channels, because I personally sort of experienced that when we were in the bread aisle looking for what kind of bun do we want to make our great burgers on. So what do bakers need to keep in mind, especially those who might be selling into multiple channels like food service and retail?
Yeah, no, and I like your tradition. That's a fun one. It's fun to to task everyone to be in charge of the meal. But in terms of visual quality crossover among different channels, I think consumers are looking for, and they expect sort of the same level of visual quality of attention and detail than you would get from a high-end restaurant. They would love to get it. And right now, what we're talking about, the fact that, hey, there's a big opportunity right there. And how do we do it? Similarly, I think, visually appealing, high-quality baked goods from a bakery may be expected to have the same quality and attention to details as if it's sold at a specialty food store or online, like Whole Foods or something like that. But the visual quality from consumers using our senses, like the taste, the smell, the visual, the hearing, etc. But I think visual is the biggest thing we can attract customers in. And visual quality of a baked good will communicate the level of quality and craftsmanship, regardless, in my opinion, of the channel through it is sold. It's not just saying, "Oh, it's sold." Why not have a premium in a vending machine? I think it's doable. Again, it's rethinking how we're doing things and rethinking what's premium and what do we want. And throughout the example in the conversation, we've clearly determined that all of us are consumers, and all of us will spend, regardless of demographics, will spend extra money for something we consider premium.
Yeah. And I mean, the research is showing that. That's what I'm seeing in all the research reports, that despite inflationary pressure, we talked about it in the very first episode, consumers are showing that they are willing to spend more money for a higher quality baked good.
And then that's why we're seeing still, like a smaller retail bakeries in Philadelphia or in New York still have a line at the door to buy a premium bread or a premium sandwich. But again, it's, in my opinion, throughout the weeks of conversation, it's about the experience. It has to be visually appealing, and that can cross over among different channels. And it has to taste good and have a great texture, and that will bring people back. So it's basically almost like a Anton Ego from Ratatouille. Make sure, no matter what, make sure people can go back to that.
Yes. And I think that is the perfect sentiment to close out this season on. And by the way, I do love Ratatouille. It's such a great movie. Richard, thank you so much for having this conversation with me and really diving into the technical aspects that are really required for bakers to think about to create high quality premium baked goods. Because you're right, people are lining up down the street at the retail level. Commercial bakers have an opportunity to tap into this trend and make really great baked goods. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insight. It's been truly a pleasure to chat with you over these past 5 weeks.
It was my pleasure to be chatting with you, Joanie, and I hope that it will inspire people listening to think differently. So thank you for letting me be part of the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Troubleshooting Innovation, and a special thanks to our sponsor, Parados Sunset Glaze. To learn more about this plant-based egg wash alternative, visit parados.us. That's PURATOS.us.